Alright, good day everybody. So today we'll be doing the valve cover gasket on an F30 BMW or any BMW with the N20 engine. This will apply to. But first, when we do any work on these cars, we need to remove the battery terminal in order for everything to be safe to work with. The battery terminal is held by a 10mm bolt. Let's loosen that, remove the terminal. And remember to put something in the latch here, because if you manage to get the trunk lid closed, it's electronically operated and there's no override. So you will have to be very careful with that. Alright, so in order to gain access to the valve cover, we'll have to remove these trim here. That's this one over there. They're held in by quarter turn fasteners. They turn quarter turn away from the marking arrows, and then you lift it out like this. Set that aside, and then now you're going to need to remove these E-Torx bolts. There are three holding the strut braces in place. So one here, two here, one over that side. This will be four. When you remove all of that, then you'll get proper access to the top of the engine. Alright, so I went ahead and removed the E-Torx bolts, which will now allow this strut brace to be easily removed. Set that aside, and then you're going to remove the guard here, which are held in by some 10mm nuts. Alright, so I removed the 6 bolts that hold in the guard and the push tab right here that secures this to the guard. Just go ahead now, lift it out, further exposing some more area that we need to work with. In order to get more room to work with, this positive cable that is joined there will need to be removed, as well as the vacuum line here for the brake booster. Alright, so after getting all that out of the way now, it's safe to remove the engine cover. On some models you have a vacuum line that connects here to the underside of the engine cover before going to the turbo actuator. You need to remove those lines first, and then you can lift up the engine cover. Lift it, pull it out of the way, set it aside. The sound deadening material, you can lift that to expose the area that we're going to work with. Now we'll need to remove the wiring harness, the connectors, as well as the one to get them out of the way. Then we're going to need to remove the high pressure fuel pump, as well as the fuel rail, ignition coils, and these bolts that hold the valve cover in place. Also, you'll need to remove the vacuum pump that's located behind here. It's held in by 3 Torx screws. To remove that, get all wiring connectors out of the way, fuel rail and the fuel pump. Then we should be able to remove the valve cover. Now, just a tip, when you're removing the high pressure fuel pump, please put a piece of rubber or something underneath. You're going to remove this line first, because there's pressure in it and any excess fuel will come out there. You wouldn't want to be pulling these and too much fuel come out and fill the gaps where the spark plugs are to be. So you're going to loosen this, get rid of the pressure, and then you can go ahead and remove the clamps, remove the lines to the injectors, and then you can remove this. You need to take time removing this. Each 2 screws holding it in, so you need to remove the screws small increments at a time because this is under pressure, spring pressure. Alright, progress so far. I have since removed the high pressure fuel pump, the coil packs, disconnected the wire harness from the injectors and coil packs. So now it's to remove the fuel rail. So after loosening up the fuel rail and disconnecting the injectors and the pressure plug, just lift it, remove this, set it aside. Now the vacuum pump, which is located in the corner there, is held in by a 3 T40 Torx bolt. The space there is very tight, so what I had to do was get a short T40 bit and just fasten it into a spanner. Use it to break the bolts. Once you get them started, it's easily to pull them out by hand, and then from that remove them, and then you can remove the vacuum pump by just prying it out and careful when removing it though not to let that turn, because that gets in alignment with the camshaft, so it will be hard to put it in if it's out of alignment. So now after removing the vacuum pump, fuel rail, wire harness, coil packs, fuel pump, next step is to remove these screws that hold the Vanos actuators as well as the purge valve connection. I went ahead and removed the ear box to make more space to work with. So after removing the 20 bolts that hold in the valve cover, we can now remove it by just shaking it loose and then lifting it off and exposing the underside so we can replace the gasket. So the valve cover has now been removed, and the area that we had the oil leak was right around, especially the lower section here, where it was falling directly onto the muffler and causing the car to smoke. And these are different components: the camshaft, the eccentric cam, mount for the high pressure fuel pump, Vanos. It is a good time now to check the chain. I heard that there is a common issue with these where the chains tend to get a little bit stretched, but this one is fairly tight, so there is no issue here. So what we're going to do now is replace the gasket on the valve cover, clean the mating surfaces here properly so we can get the new gasket to seated properly. This side especially is prone to crystallizing because it's nearer to the exhaust, so there's more heat being produced on this side. And after a while, when rubber gets exposed to heat, it tends to get brittle and lose its buoyancy. Now replacing the new one is simple. There's a locating tab here that you can locate the correct positioning of the gasket. Put it here and then insert it along, going around. And just do that until it's properly seated all the way around. Repeat the same steps with the inner gaskets also. So after replacing the valve cover, you're now going to tighten each of these screws, each of the 20 screws, hand tighten them. So as they feel snug with your hand, then you can start the tightening process. Now the next picture that will be on frame now will be the pattern in which you can tighten the bolts, and it's important to do it incrementally. So you do like a quarter turn or half turn each, going around until it is tight enough. If you do it unevenly or too much on one, you can cause the valve cover to crack. Remember, it is plastic. So after doing that, it's time to reassemble everything, which is a reverse of the removal process. So all the parts have now been assembled. Fuel lines have been tightened to spec. High pressure, low pressure sides. Wiring harness put back in place. Gave it a start prior to this. It took a little while to start. I'm guessing because of the air that was in the fuel line after pulling it apart. But it started, ran smoothly. Check for leaks. There were no leaks discovered. So now it's just reassemble the rest of the car.